This is the history of the 408 Cleveland. I started working on it in February of 2010. I got it to Bob Beach's Beach Performance in April of 2013. You can see that it had a full workup. We ended up filling the block. He ended up putting and screwing core plugs in it. It had to be line honed, decked, and then it was honed with torque plates. So this is the process of kind of how we went through it. It's the same block that I'm using now that is the 409 Cleveland, and I'll do another video on that engine, how it progressed and got a little bit bigger. But that's the date 11 of 20 of 1970. So this is just the block getting ready to be honed. Bob's been doing this kind of work for over 50 years. So back then he was like 70 and I was 48. So this block, I think, is well seasoned with 130 something thousand miles on it. I think you get a good block every now and then, and this has been a great one. So Bob and I worked on this together for a few days. I stayed up there in that area and went to work with him every day. And it's never had any lifter bore bushings. And I just discovered something else in regards to my oiling modifications, which I'm going to make another video because I find it hard to believe. But it had to be decked. You can see it was off 6 thousandths there, and I think it was close to 8 on the other side. Now we're getting ready to deck it. I'm surprised to have all these old videos, but I figure you guys might enjoy watching this kind of thing. Video. Yeah. For this phone. Here we are working hard on this old rustic piece of junk. Oh, actually, we can do this. No, we can't do that. We're working on this piece of junk, right? We're video now. Now we'll go back.
What's Larry doing?
I talked to him this morning on the way here. Nothing. You don't want to do nothing.
Really?
You don't care about nothing. You don't want to do nothing. You probably ain't going to go racing.
Really?
He always says the same thing when you call him, though.
Oh.
You know how he is. That's for Larry.
Yeah, he's just laid back,
Yep. 1970. That must be the VIN number from the 71 Cougar that I had. That I only paid 20 bucks for that car. Drove it for like 3 years. There's a picture of the block, getting ready to get the work done. Now I put the pipe plug in the number 1, that large hole there, and used Tim Meyer oil restrictor cam bearings. Now there's the crank you've been seeing. I guess that's a scat crank. And when I look at the rod bolts, you can see that they also say scat on them. Now when I got them, it was in just a white paper box, so I never knew what crankshaft that was. And this is obviously before it had the Omnicron process. Yeah, you can see the scat in the ARP bolt right there. So the pistons themselves were from Randy Gillis. He's a big Ford guy. He's passed now. This is his last set of pistons he made when he worked at JE. RIP, Randy. Race in peace. So we had some original A3 heads that were 50cc combustion chambers, and these were supposed to be 14.7-to-1 with that engine. The problem was we had some issues fitting the pistons to those cylinder heads that had been cut, and I ended up scrapping them as far as using them on this combination. I sold them to a guy, I think his name was Rex Lilly. So I brought another set of A3 heads that are imported by Modern Cylinder Head, Jeff Klabowski, RIP Jeff. And then Bob and his son worked on fitting those cylinder heads to this piston combination. I didn't want to increase the head gasket and change the compression. So it's a lot of machine work, so to speak. It's not just something you bolt together. We had to put fire slots in the pistons to get it to clear the spark plug. I think the piston sticks up over 1/1000th out of the bore. Bob did the balancing act on it, and it came out mint. I love seeing that crankshaft sitting in there. Brings back a lot of memories, I'll tell you. Now that main girdle came from FPS, Ford Performance Solutions, Troy Bowen. I bought that back in 1998 when I'd had my first stroker, a 377 Cleveland. That was Bob checking the piston to valve clearance. You can see a Yellow Terra rocker arm there. And then this is how I took it from Bob's with the heads on because I was going to get my own lifters. So I got it back to my shop and getting ready to paint it, had everything taped up, and there's the yellow tear rocker arms. So I painted it Ford blue. That's my favorite color, I'll tell you. Taped it all up good. That engine cradle you see there, I'm telling you, if you need to move an engine, get one of these cradles. I think I bought that from Jegs for like 20 bucks. It's been the best piece of equipment I've used. So I had it all mocked up, ready to go in the car, my Cougar. I always install it with the transmission and engine together. It just always was easier for me. I didn't have to mess around with getting the converter lined up. Now I can't pick it up by the intake anymore since it's been ported by Darren. It's too fragile. So I go ahead and I get the engine installed in the Cougar. Everything's going fine. I'm thinking, hey, this is great. I can't wait to get this thing fired up. And it fits like they're in there like a glove. So this is when you get all the accessories bolted on, you're getting pumped and you're getting ready, and then the problem sets in. Installed the Easy Roll Isky lifters I got directly from Isky. They were just coming out back then, and this is what happened. That's a $2,000. I checked the gauge with another oil pressure gauge to see if that was an issue. And by now I'm frustrated and it's like something's wrong. The engine's got to come back out. You can't do anything with it in the car. So this is not my choice of music. This was on the radio. So, I'm thinking, is there a problem with the oil pan, the oil pickup hitting the pan? Is there a problem with the oil pump itself? I started looking at everything from every angle thinking, man, what is the issue? I do not want to start taking this thing apart and pulling the main girdle off and all the bearings. But I looked in the pan. It just looked like it was a little darker oil, like there was an issue there. So it started making me more concerned. So I started looking at the oil pump thinking that might be an issue. Anything to prevent tearing this engine apart. And I inspected the oil pump. I ended up taking that off, looking at it, didn't see anything debris in it. The relief valve was working. I checked that to make sure there was no issue there. I was about ready to change the oil pump. I started looking at the bearings, make sure there wasn't anything that I could see. So I said, at this time, I just got to flip it over and just start tearing this thing down because it's not going to get fixed by itself. I got to start from the beginning. So that's what I did. And you'll see coming up what I found, which I never really found where they came from. And I'll leave that up to you if you can tell me what you think. But you'll see these little pieces of debris. All the rods had great side clearance. I didn't see any issues with the bores. And again, trying to prevent from tearing this thing back down since I just got it together. Never found anything with the bottom end, but what I did find, which did not cause this issue, were these small little pieces of debris. You can see them by the oil pump drive shaft on the girdle. I think they came from the oil pump itself where the drive shaft goes in. They look like little hex pieces. I never really found out what they were. I cleaned it up, put it back together, never had an issue from it. I pulled the main caps off and checked all the bearings. I mean, the crank looked great. There was no scoring. So I'm like, okay, there's no issue with the main bearings. I ended up pulling the rod bearings off too on a couple of the rods to see if there was an issue with that. They all looked great. There was no abnormal wear on them, no scoring. So I started calling people and running the problem by them. And I can't remember who it was, but someone said, you know what you should think about? You should think about maybe checking your lifters out. You may have 351 Windsor lifters in there, which I've seen something like that similar. I'm like, okay. So I ended up buttoning the bottom end back up. To this day, it still bothers me about those little pieces of debris. Then I ended up taking off the intake manifold and looking at the lifters, and sure enough, they were the wrong lifters. So I got a set of Crane Ultra Pros, installed them. Man, the oil pressure was like it's always been, and I never looked back. .408 was installed in the Cougar, ran like a charm. I was so happy about it. I even drove it on the street a little bit before I took it to the track. That was June 19th of 2013. So the lights come down, tranny brakes on at 3,300. I let go of the button, instant skybound, baby, with a 150 60 foot and came down smashing the whole front end. You can see that right front tire shoved the shock right up through the hood on the left side. Those were Calvert's 9010s. So took out the front spoiler. You can see that whole valance panel scraped up. The rear bumper got scraped up, put a hole in the slick. Also, dragged my brand new Barry Grant 400 pump, breaking the fuel pressure gauge, leaking fuel all over the place. You can see where the fuel filter dragged on the track itself. That's the right front bumper. You can see where that thing was dragging the side of the track, leaning over. You can see the tie rod bent there. Totally trashed it. So I went ahead, fixed everything. I got a new oil pan on it, put that all up, put on a set of competition engineering drag shocks 9010. And what did I do? I do the damn same thing over again, smash the oil pan this time, only didn't wreck everything else. That's when I learned that I either got to get wheelie bars or I needed better shocks. And that's where Mark Metzer comes in. Once I installed his shocks, that's when the front end was under control. I only had about maybe 3 or 4 inches of wheel stand, and my 60 foots were in the 130s. And then I ran about 30 runs with that engine. I think the best I had was like a 970 or something like that.